special webinar for us because for the first time we are going to be talking to you about how to set up a D2C brand from scratch. And for that, we've scouted and found the best person to talk to you about that. I'd like to welcome Arjun Vaidya. Thank you so much for joining us today to tell us all about how to set up a D2C brand from scratch, Arjun.
Hey, hi Chetna. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here with you guys.
So, a little bit about Arjun before we start and we wait for people to join us, right? I would just like to introduce people to our speaker for the day. And of course, Arjun, then you can explain a little bit further about your business. So, until January 2021, Arjun was the CEO at Dr. Vaidya's New Age Ayurveda. He has worked in private equity at a consumer sector focused fund. And now he is an angel investor also. And since 2016, Arjun has taken his 150-year-old family legacy of Ayurvedic formulations and made it into a successful, thriving D2C brand. And also Arjun is the first Ayurvedic entrepreneur to be featured in the Forbes 30 under 30 Asia list and Business World 40 under 40 list. So this is a small introduction of our speaker for today. Arjun, a lot of people, joining us today are aware of the business that you have created and the magnitude that it has. It's reached over 1 million consumers and it's shipping to, Dr. Vaidya's is also shipping to over, I think 16,000 pin codes in India, right? So that's phenomenal. And congratulations on setting up such a brilliant brand over the span of 5 years. I think you've been working on it since 2016, right? So tell us a little bit about how you came to, leaving your 9-to-5 job, and you even have a degree from Brown University, USA. So you gave up a cushy, steady income job to take on, the shoes of an entrepreneur and scale your family business. So please do tell us a little bit of your business backstory.
No, I think thanks for having me, Chetna, and I'm really happy to share my story and if this can add value to founders, prospective founders, people who are interested in the startup ecosystem. Always happy to do that. So I'll talk a little bit about the backstory before I talk about leaving my job, because I think the backstory is very important. So Vaidya, my last name actually means Ayurvedic doctor. I come from a legacy of 150 years of Ayurveda in my family. So my grandfather, great-grandfather, instead of generations before, were all Ayurvedic doctors. The legacy of our business was actually not a business.
Okay.
My grandfather ran an Ayurvedic clinic, which he inherited from his father. We had a large amount of proprietary Ayurvedic formulations, 100 plus, that were passed down from generation to generation. And my grandfather became probably India's most successful Ayurvedic doctor. He used to see 300 to 350 patients on a daily basis in his clinic. He had 12,000 patients writing to him via post, and post is the e-commerce of that time. But he was a doctor. He never cared for sales, distribution, marketing, strategy. He was someone who did service, right? So the very interesting thing about my grandfather was he never charged for a consultation. He gave a free consultation because he didn't want income or income strata to prevent people from coming to his clinic.
Wow.
He never really cared for marketing, and so he never set up a brand. My dad wanted to set up a brand when he graduated from college, but doctors and businessmen don't see eye to eye. And so eventually my dad went his own way and sort of started his own business in the jewelry and watch space. But I grew up with asthma. So I grew up with juvenile bronchitis. I suffered for 12 or 13 years. I grew up with pumps, nebulizers, steroids, inhalers. I also actually was forced to stop playing cricket, right?
Oh, no.
And I was forced to stop playing cricket because of the dust on the cricket field and what it did for my asthma. So asthma sort of prevented me from having what I thought was a normal life. Right? I wasn't allowed to have ice cream. I wasn't allowed to have soft drinks. At that time, kids used to have soft drinks.
Yeah, I know all that stuff. Yeah.
But 13 years of Ayurvedic treatment later, I was cured of asthma by my grandfather. And so Ayurveda became sort of more than just family legacy. It became something that meant a lot to me. Right? I went, as you said, to Brown for my undergrad. I went to the US. I saw, when I was in the US, I moved toward natural organic products. I saw yoga being repackaged. Right? I saw yoga mats, yoga gyms, yoga apparel, Lululemon.
Yeah.
$50 billion industry in the US. And I thought to myself, why can't Indian companies take Ayurveda to the world? Yoga was taken from us, repackaged and sent back to us. But we didn't have much to do with it, right? So why can't Indian companies take Ayurveda to the world? that was a thought process. I came back to India in 2013. I started a job in private equity, as you mentioned. I worked at a consumer sector focused fund. Spent a lot of time on the Indian consumer. Right? So I grew up in India in the 90s, which was obsessed with imported products.
Yeah.
If it was imported, it was good. If it was Indian, it was substandard, right? So for my
Yes.
11th birthday, I was gifted a Japanese electronic sharpener from a store that only sold imported products. We had those imported product shops, right? That changed. Yeah. It was a big change in India. We were sort of happy to consume quintessentially Indian products. Indian consumers were changing. We were proud of our heritage. And the other thing was I was the youngest member at the fund. And so I got to work on e-commerce, right? And you know, the 2013, 14, 15, e-commerce was just happening in India. It was just sort of coming
up, yeah.
And so I got to do all of these interesting things in private equity. And I also saw a renaissance happening with Ayurveda, right? So Ministry of Ayush was created, government changed, Patanjali revolution happened, and hundreds of thousands of customers like you, Chetna, were interested in Ayurveda and wanted to know more. And so this entire renaissance was happening. My grandfather unfortunately passed, and so we had this legacy, we had these formulations, we had all of this.
Yeah.
I realized that like private equity was great and I loved the investing side, but I liked meeting the founders and the brand side much more. Like think about I'm wearing a t-shirt. It's a collared t-shirt, but this brand name on the t-shirt here is paid 10x the price of what the fabric costs. Right. And that was exciting for me. Like brand creation was exciting for me. So I started thinking about Ayurveda and what I could do with it. And then I had this aha moment like most founders do, right? So I was at my dad's 50th birthday, April 2016. And they were having a small party for him in his office. And I gave a speech on my dad and sort of what he's taught me and all of that kind of stuff. And at the end of the speech, so by this time my grandfather had passed, but his clinic was still running as a dispensary. All of his patients still wanted his medicine. So his clinic was still running as a dispensary. And after the speech, his nurse of 17 years came up to me and she said, "You're talking about your dad, but what about your grandfather's legacy? If you don't do anything about it right now, it's going to die." And for me, that was the moment the sort of switch flipped. It turned on and I said, okay, time to do this. I'm going to go ahead with this. So I quit my job and I set off on this journey to build Dr. Vaidya's. And yeah, the rest is history, basically.
Wow, that's such an inspiring story because I think a lot of founders, their aha moments are tied somehow to either, family or a peer member. So it's definitely good to know that, that's what inspired you. And when you made that switch, right, when you decided to set up Dr. Vaidya's and make, correct me if I'm wrong, but was it already an existing business? I mean, it wasn't. So you created the brand, Dr. Vaidya's.
My grandfather had a clinic and his patients used to come to his clinic. Right? That was what I inherited. From there, I had to create a brand, I had to create products, I had to create packaging. All of that was not there. The formulations were there and the factory was there. But pretty much from there, naming the company Dr. Vaidya's, naming it after my grandfather, logo, branding, product, strategy, it had to be done from scratch. So a lot of people mistake Dr. Vaidya's for being a legacy brand. It was not a legacy brand. And the fact that people think it was a legacy brand means that we did something right with our marketing because
that's what they are. It works with Indians also, if I'm not wrong, that knowing that something's legacy. I mean, another example, if I may say so, is Reliance, right? Your Birla, your Tatas, it's all about legacy. So I think Indians like that and they buy that. So that's one. But I'm more curious to know now how you went about, because you had to start from zero, right? I mean, you inherited this bit about, you inherited the formulations, you inherited the Ayurveda brand, but how did you go about making it a reality? How did you go about making the, the medicines and from the packaging to shipping, etc.? Did you create a website? I would like to know how you started. I'm actually curious to know that.
Sure. Yeah. So look, I think I'll tell you about the beginning, right? So I was having a conversation with my dad at this time, and my grandfather was a doctor who largely treated chronic patients, right? So what my grandfather did was diabetes, arthritis, asthma. Obviously, I was cured of asthma, but at 24 years old, I was not excited to sell diabetes, arthritis, and asthma, right? So I said, no, I'm going to create a brand that appeals to modern consumers. It's going to be appealing, accessible. It's going to be millennial. It's going to be new age, all of those things. I'm not going to start with those products. So we launched 2 products in October 2016. One was called Live It Up, is called Live It Up.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite product from what we created at Dr. Vedas. Not a huge seller, but an exceptional product. It's an Ayurvedic hangover shield that doubled up as a long-term liver protector. So you have it before you drink and sort of party and wake up fresh in the morning. And the other product is Herbo Fit. So Herbo is the goodness of Chyawanprash in a capsule. It takes sort of the 21 actives of Chyawanprash and puts into a capsule. So multivitaminized version of Chyawanprash. That's what you think about.
Yeah.
No bitterness, stickiness, or inconvenience of the paste. Right? So we started with these two products.
Right.
How did we start? We built this brand. We created these two products. We created their packaging. We went out in the market, and in late 2016, early 2017, D2C didn't exist. E-commerce brands were not in existence. Nobody was thinking about it, and so we started this company, and we said, "Chalo, let's go offline, like everybody does. Let's do offline and start distribution." So we started offline distribution.
Okay.
Hired 22 sales reps in Bombay, and I remember I had a big party in Taj Lands End for distributors, and then party was a huge success, and we got 10 lakh rupees worth of orders at that time. Now, naive that I was at that time, I thought this is amazing, and I'm on the path to success. I didn't realize that this was primarily billing to distributors. Distributors have to sell to retailers. Retailers have to get customers to buy. Only once the customers buy do you get paid.
Yes.
3 months later, 22 people on my payroll, I got 9 lakhs worth of product back as a return, right? And that's when the harsh reality set in that life is not that easy. You know, when I did those 10 lakhs worth of sales, I was private equity minded, and you were saying 10 lakhs will go to 20 lakhs, 50 lakhs, 1 crore, 3 crores, 5 crores. And
only up till, yeah.
I'm set, right? And that was the biggest setback. And then had to do some reflection and really think, why did this happen? Right. So first it was the world is coming to an end. I was a good student in school. I went to a good college, had a good job, and now I've done this, and this is a disaster, right? So when sort of good sense prevailed, and I had some time to reflect, I realized that basically offline is extremely competitive in Ayurveda. There are a lot of large legacy brands. Also, I don't have the experience to do offline. I didn't know what I was doing, and so really accepting that failure was the best decision I took at Dr. Vedas, and saying, no, this is not working. I'm not going to do this. And so we shut down the offline business completely, and we said the opportunity lies in online, right? And when we did that, my wife Trisha, who I built a business with, she had worked at Goldman in the UK, and then she had worked in the early team at Nykaa, the first 20 folks who worked in Nykaa, and she believed in the online opportunity. And so she pushed me to the online opportunity, and I said, look, I think what you're saying is right, but I can't do it on my own. And she was my girlfriend at the time, right?
Right.
You can't do it on my own, so will you do it with me? And she took a little bit of convincing, but then she said, sure, I'll do it with you. But both sets of parents were like, this is a disaster waiting to happen. They're still dating, right? So we got engaged in April 2017, and sort of slightly shortly after that, she joined the business, and that's when we started our journey to building an online brand. So November 2017, drvedas.com launched. We also realized 2 products isn't going to cut it, so we repackaged on the 27 SKUs from our IP. We have 29 products, and we launched drvedas.com in November 2017. We did 1 order every 3 days. I remember celebrating every order we got, right? Every customer bought from us. And then we spent the next year learning about digital marketing, Facebook, Google, GA, websites, UI, UX, Shopify, WooCommerce, what's better, what's worse, and establishing product market fit, doing customer service on weekends. So every Sunday we did customer service ourselves to understand where the gaps are, what the customer wants to know. And from there, sort of worked really hard for 1 year, the toughest year at Dr. Vedas, to get from 1 order every 3 days to 50 orders a day on Dr. Vedas.
Okay.
And at 50 orders a day, at a customer acquisition cost of sort of a reasonable amount of, let's say, 30-35% of our average order value.
Okay.
This is a business that works. And from here, we can hyperscale.
All right. Now, I'm curious, and I have to ask this, it was right at the tip of my tongue. That's how did you get there? I want to know that, because at that time you were still learning about the different, facets of marketing that goes into it. And I know that every small business owner at that time, since it was a small business, every small business owner, everyone who's skittish about setting up a business, right? They think, I don't know everything. I don't know marketing. I don't know UI, UX, like you said. I don't know SEO. I have to learn on the go. So how did you get from, one product, one order every 3 days to 50 orders a day? How did you make that? What were your strategies? I'm curious to know that.
Yeah, so I think, look, for us it was just learning first, right? Learning everything ourselves: Facebook marketing, Google marketing, setting up a small core team, figuring out what products work, what products don't work, talking to customers. I think all of that went into really sort of getting our product market fit, as I would say, over the next year.
Yeah.
Took a lot of effort from our end. So if
Right.
you ask me, it took more effort to get from 0 to 50 than from 50 to 5,000 orders a day.
Wow. All right. Of course, that makes sense. And it's a medicinal product. I mean, it's pharmaceuticals, right? Or were there? I mean, you were selling because it's Ayurveda, and it's something I think Indians have more faith in. Correct me if I'm wrong. Do Indians have more faith in Ayurveda than Western medicine? What have
I
you?
don't think it's a this or that. Uh,
Okay.
I don't think so. I'm a big proponent of both coexisting. Unlike sort of most people from both sides of the spectrum, my dada used to always say, if you have a fever, to bring the fever down, you have to have a paracetamol.
Yeah.
But to prevent the fever from happening ever again, have Chyawanprash or have an Ayurvedic immunity boosting supplement. So I think both can coexist. I don't think there's a this or that. But yes, the interest towards Ayurveda has been sort of at inflection point now, and the amount of interest that Ayurveda has got over the last 18 months is just crazy.
Absolutely, I agree. So I think we can now jump into the exact technicality of what a D2C brand is. A lot of small businesses, I was also not aware, but a lot of them are not aware of what it means. I had people when I was discussing the webinar with a lot of my peers who are in who are thinking of setting up a business, they needed to be explained what D2C means, that it's direct to consumer, and they are not completely aware of what it entails, right? The first thing they think is, I have to sell on a marketplace, or I have to sell on like a platform that already exists, and they'll do everything for me. And so I do not have the burden of taking care of marketing efforts or shipping or any of that, right? So, could you please elucidate exactly what goes into setting up a D2C brand and what it is and what Indians must know?
Sure. So I think D2C, as the name suggests, is direct to consumer.
Yeah.
I think the real exciting part about being direct to consumer is that you actually own the customer journey. So there are no middlemen between you and the customer. And as a brand, you get a direct feedback loop, right? Why is it so exciting? Because if a customer likes something, they tell you they like something. If a customer doesn't like something, they tell you. If a customer wants something more, they can also tell you that. And as a brand, there is, if you're getting feedback from the retail channel, it may take 3 months for it to percolate from the end customer to the brand owner or the brand manager. In D2C,
Right.
that feedback is real time, right?
Right. Right.
Also, as you launch new products or as you want the customer to come back to you, you control that entire journey. So that's the real exciting part about D2C. Look, I think on definition of D2C, I'm not a stickler. Some people consider D2C to be only your own website.
Yeah.
Some people consider D2C to be website plus marketplace. The real sort of theoretical definition would be only from your own website, where you go directly to the customer. For your own website, actually, it's become very easy to set it up now, as opposed to when we were setting it up, right? So I think the first part of D2C would be sort of finding your product. So find that interesting product that you want to sell. Do your own research. Go on Amazon, see what products have reviews, what niches you like. Try to source the product. Develop your manufacturing relationships, etc., and identify what you want to sell. Right.
Yes.
From there, get the product manufactured, ideate, protect it, trademark it, etc., like that. And then you're ready with your product, and do some customer trials, get some customer feedback, etc. You then need to set up your own website, right? And so you need to choose a platform, like a plug and play, ready to use platform like a Shopify or a WooCommerce or a custom build to get your website up and running. Once you get your website up and running, you then need to go and acquire customers, right? So do your own social media marketing, do your own performance marketing, do your own organic content marketing, tell your friends and family, and get your customers in. While you set up your website, one important thing which I forgot to talk about, which you guys know better than me, is sort of setting up your payment gateway as well. So there's two ways to do orders on your e-commerce website. The first is cash on delivery, which is the bulk of the orders in India today. But I think Now, as customers become sort of more digitally native and digitally savvy, you also need to set up your payment gateway. Then you go acquire customers. Once you acquire customers, you need to set up your operations, right? So initially, you need to set up just a small stock room or sort of stock holding room where you keep your stock, and then you bring in orders. And as you bring in orders, you can tie up with aggregators for shipping, like a ShipRocket or a ShipDelight,
Right.
who sort of aggregate courier partners like Delivery, Com Express, Expresspeace, FedEx, Blue Dart, Gati, all of these sort of partners, and then you ship out your orders, right? And once you ship out your orders, it's also important, I think, where a lot of B2C brands forget is to track the journey from the time the order leaves you to the time it reaches the customer, right? Because a lot of times your order gets sort of not picked up, COD refusals, return to origin, etc. That's really important to track the customer experience to be seamless, because while you know that Blue Dart is shipping the order, the customer doesn't. They believe they've ordered from you, and so that experience of sending
Yes.
a to the customer, tracking the order, getting the customer order to the customer is really important. And then actually the most important part of the D2C journey is post the order reaching the customer, how you can interact with the customer, right? Through social
Yeah.
media, through content, through retention marketing, SMS, email, push notification, WhatsApp, how you can get feedback from the customer. And then eventually the real money spinner for D2C brands is get the customer to come back a second, third, and fourth time. So that's the entire sort of way to set up a D2C channel.
So, yeah, of course. So, lots of questions coming, to you from this. So this looks like, as a small business owner, my first thought is, man, this seems like a lot of work, and I know that a lot of people believe that as well, that this seems like a lot. Like, in fact, we even have a question from an audience member, Rapti, who's saying, like small businesses want to make fast money and feel that they don't, they can't do their own website. So, what are some of your fast sale tips? Right? What, do you believe that those who set up a D2C channel have to be patient? Or do you think there is a certain number of days, through which they should expect a certain kind of growth, or a certain kind of sales?
Yeah, so I think it's a good question. I don't have a direct answer to this. Are there any fast sale tips? I get your point though, right? Because it is a lot of work to set up your own D2C channel. It takes a lot of time, effort, and
Yeah.
energy. So if you're finding it too much work, you may want to pilot through marketplaces and see what's happening on marketplaces and then move to D2C. Having said that, there are key benefits of D2C. Owning the customer data, owning the customer journey, controlling the repeats and retention, cross-selling and upselling products. You will never get this on a marketplace, right? But marketplaces have their own set of advantages: seamless operations, no running of the customer service operation yourself, large amount of traffic, which they already get. You may not be able to get it. So I think I'm not anti-marketplaces. I just think that there are unique
Of course,
benefits
yeah.
B2C has, which marketplace don't have, and vice versa. I think there are no shortcuts to building a D2C brand. There are no hacks. A lot of people ask me, what are the hacks for me to get from 0 to 100 orders a day? If there were hacks, everyone would be doing it, right? You
Yeah.
know, you got to do a basic study. You got to have a good website. You got to have good SEO. You got to have good content. You got to have good products. You got to have good customer delivery experience. You got to have good retention strategy, right? If I were to think of the entire sort of gamut of D2C operation, this is what you got to do.
Right.
But is it wrong to pilot on marketplaces, see the feedback, and then move to your own website? No, it's not wrong. So if you're finding your website too cumbersome to start with, you could go ahead and start with marketplaces. We didn't do that, but I don't think there's anything wrong in doing it.
Absolutely. And I agree with that pointer. I mean, to weigh in on this, if I may, it's, I think, also going a little halfway, I guess, because you have your e-commerce facilitators, like you were just saying, WooCommerce, Wix, Instamojo. You have, I mean, they're not completely in, taking over your branding, right? They are just kind of helping your brand get that firm footing and, go forward. And at any time, you can also set up your own website. I think it's not just a one-stop solution anymore, right? With D2C, it's you can have a website. You can also partner with an online store that has, a shipping partner and a payment gateway, like you said, right? That's also, and I think that's a good thing now. You feel like a lot of these shipping platforms and payment gateways, they're designed to help D2C, rise more, right? Like if you create a website, you integrate all of these into your website, and that's how you go forward, isn't it? I mean, I could be wrong, but
No, absolutely, you're totally right. So what I said was, and that's really important, right?
yeah,
It's not as difficult to set it up now as when we set it up, because there
yeah,
are enablers like WooCommerce,
exactly, yeah.
ShipRocket, Instamojo, Razorpay,
Hmm.
all of these enablers to make your experience very seamless, right?
Right, right.
And so the e-commerce enabler ecosystem, and by the way, I'm a very I'm a big proponent of this ecosystem, and I'm an active angel investor as well, and I've made 4 investments in businesses that enable the e-commerce ecosystem. I
Yes.
think not as difficult as it was when I started in 2017, because these enablers have been built for you to make your experience easier, and all you have to do is launch innovative products and market the products innovatively, and the rest of the back end, there are enough people helping you to do that now.
Of course. And think of it. I mean, you're talking about just 4 years back. In 4 years, we are seeing so many changes. Even I'm new to learning exactly how D2C works, and now the way Google algorithm works, it's flooded with talking about different D2C brands that are now on the rise and trying to make a difference, and just setting up platforms left, right, center, right? So, which brings me to competition. We also discussed this before about how if somebody decides to set up a D2C brand, what according to you is the best way for them to handle competition, especially in this year when, let's face it, things have become more tough on businesses, right? How can they handle competition effectively?
Yeah, very good question, actually. So I'm a big proponent of a moat, right? Finding your own moat, whatever that is. And what is a moat, right? That's a really important question. What is a moat? A
Hmm.
moat is the um, in castles and forts of the olden times. There was a
Yeah.
water body around the castles and the forts, and this water body was a protection of
Hmm.
the castle and fort. It didn't mean that nobody could breach it, but it just meant that it gave some additional protection. Similarly, for D2C brands and products, you have to think of a moat, right?
Right.
And so I think whether it's product or it's brand or it's your marketing strategy or it's you being first to the market, whatever that is, you need to be sure that you have some unique differentiation that makes customers want to come back to you
Right.
uh, multiple times and to choose you over other brands. The market is much more competitive in 2021 than it was in 2016, 2017.
Yes, very much.
2017, we were trying to solve for will you buy online,
Right.
right? If you buy online, fine, and I convince you to buy online, you will buy me.
Hmm.
Today's day and age, though, we are trying to solve for there are 20 options. Why choose me, right? And so,
Exactly. Yeah.
from that perspective, sort of very different ecosystem, and so we have to really strongly think of moat now, which we didn't have to in the past.
Okay. And so that also is something I think businesses they have to incorporate. I agree completely. And when it comes to setting up that infrastructure, right? D2C infrastructure is I see a term loosely thrown everywhere. I think it's all about creating a solid infrastructure, knowing your audience, etc. I personally believe finding your ideal audience and keeping them is one of the toughest aspects of having a business. I even saw a LinkedIn post recently, which said you can't market to everybody. You have to know who you're marketing to. How can a D2C brand know that? They have, it's almost like, you're setting something with absolutely little to no support, right? So, how do you know how to find your ideal audience? Because I would love to keep my audience once I find them, but we'll come to that later. But how do I find my ideal audience?
Yeah, so I see a question from Maupia as well, saying what should my brand's prime focus be in the first 6 months of setting up? And if
Yeah.
you think about Airbnb as well, I think their first key focus was getting 1,000 customers who genuinely like or love their product, not even like love their product,
Hmm.
and then move forward from there. What's your brand's prime focus be? It should be to set up your PMF, find your customers, understand your niche very clearly.
Right.
Before you start, you should have an idea of who your target audience should be. But
Mhm.
obviously, as I tell all founders, until you start, you don't have a clear picture completely, right? I run a podcast on D2C, and my first
Okay.
episode was with the founder of Epigamia, Rohan Mirchandani, and he said, Arjun, until customers take out rupees from their wallet and buy your product,
Hmm.
free samples don't solve for that, right? So if you give 100 people your product and they try, they'll all say it's fine, it's great. But when they spend money on it, right? Then they are invested to ensure, they're investing in you, so you have to ensure they have a good experience because they're not just going to
Exactly.
accept rubbish, right?
Yeah.
The key should be understand your target audience. So set a target audience up when you start the brand, but
Hmm.
then spend your first 6 months, your first 100 or 200 days understanding what these customers think. Are you
Right.
giving them what they need, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah, lots of forms, lots of, I think, personal messages to them, and I think getting to literally word of mouth. I think that's how it is. Because I was suddenly thinking, when you were talking, I was thinking about, the story of your grandfather, right? He consulted 300 patients a day. How would someone like, someone like your grandfather get that kind of, get so many patients coming to him? At that time, it would have been solely through word of mouth. Everyone talked about what a brilliant doctor he is. So I think even now, I don't think we should underestimate the age-old practice of word-of-mouth marketing and people talking about your brand, right? So I completely agree with that. Which brings me to the follow-up question to finding your ideal audiences. How did Dr. Vaidyas retain their audience, their customers? I'm sure it's pretty natural when they see Ayurvedic products working, Ayurvedic medicines working for them. I would, definitely be loyal to that brand. And they also say don't switch brands like that, especially in the pharma industry, But how did Dr. Vedias go about retaining customers?
Yeah, so I think the once you're a D2C brand, right, you have data. Data is the new oil, right? That's that
Yeah,
famous everyone says. So you have that data, right? And now you have to do what you can to get the customer back. Some customers like WhatsApp, some customers like SMS, some customers like email, some customers like calls. We would try every medium to get feedback from the customer and then
yeah.
educate them on their dosage being over. So it's pretty
Oh,
mechanical. 25 days after your order is placed, we know you'll be running out of your medicine. So we will call you for feedback on your medicine, ask if you want a free doctor consultation, if you want to top up again. So we used every means possible. Other than this, obviously, relevant content, sessions like these, we used to do a lot of live sessions with our doctors,
right.
experts, etc. All of that. All of that ecosystem creation helped us retain customers.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great strategy also. I think we can, before we take the audience questions, there was one final thing. You have mentioned that you are an angel investor now. And a lot of businesses here are already, I'm sure the years have already, perked up knowing that you are an angel investor. What exactly, now I would like to know your expertise as an investor. What is it that you think, D2C brands should focus on when they're looking at, finding investors or raising funds for their business, right? Fundraising is a lot of businesses at this point are scared. A lot of them are taking loans, working capital loans or long-term loans. But when it comes to raising funds, what exactly do you think businesses should, aim for?
Yeah, so look, I think establishing that early product market fit, getting your product out to like 100 or 1,000 customers, that doesn't need that much money actually. You can hustle, you can use your own network, friends and family, social media, organic content, and get to those customers. Once you establish product market fit and you have some initial early traction, and you have enough loyal customers and you have something, then it's easier to raise funds. I think from scratch, just like on seed stage, a lot of people try to raise money.
Mhm.
I'm not a big proponent of that because in D2C, actually, to get a product out to market is not very expensive, right? To just
Right.
get a few 100,000 units and give it to customers, not very expensive. So I think that establishing early traction and product market fit is very important to raise really good capital.
Okay.
The thing is, I see a lot of people just wanting to raise capital because it's in vogue or in trend. I think capital is a treadmill. Once you raise someone else's money, it's an absolute treadmill.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah,
find people, I mean, do you find them stopping themselves from looking for investors also? I mean, what exactly is the ideal fundraising tip that you would give these businesses? Should they approach VCs and angel investors? Should they go for
I
small?
think build a good business. Once you build a good business, investors will come to you instead of pushing
Wow.
yourself onto investors who aren't sure.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's the hope. That's the hope anyway. So I think we have a few questions from the audience also that we can start taking. One of them I remember was a question that even a few of my personal connections asked, which is, can my business make a shift to D2C? In the sense, I think you sell on marketplaces, etc. Is it easy to just make that shift to D2C?
Absolutely. I think that look, D2C is now non-negotiable for any B2C product. It's non-negotiable. You have to have a website, you have to have commerce enabled. It's not 2015 where it was okay to just be on marketplaces. I think if you're selling a product, even if marketplace is 70-80% of your sales, then at least have a website for sale, right? And if you follow the steps I mentioned earlier in the conversation,
Yeah.
and just go for it, start. I think that's the best thing. I keep
Yeah.
telling customers, like, don't overthink it, just start and customers will tell you or answer your questions.
I think from a content perspective, since that's one area I can give my viewpoints on, but you were earlier mentioning talking about hacks, right? A lot of keywords nowadays online are hacks. They say D2C e-commerce hacks, D2C marketing hacks. So I think that's where people want quick solutions, and which it brings me to this question also, Asbirab. Then I think it's very relevant that when you say that they, these guys, why they sell on a marketplace, because they feel that they get more exposure on a marketplace than their own product. So what are some pros and cons?
Yes, so I talked about the pros and cons of website versus marketplace. I think the key here is, right, marketplaces have traffic coming to them already, which is a great thing to leverage. Having said that, and D2C is tougher. It's more work, right? You got to do your own website, your own payment gateway, your own tech. You got to manage changes on your website. There's a discount, you have to configure it, you have to launch a product, you have to add the product to your website, you have to do shipping yourself, you have to do logistics yourself, customer service yourself, emails come in from customers, you have to answer it yourself. So it is a lot of work. But you control the customer's experience.
That's the main
data, and you have the customer data. So I know I fulfill orders in 16,500 pin codes because I did D2C. I would have never known that if I was on marketplaces. Only, right? So there are pros and cons. There's nothing wrong with marketplaces. It's another channel. It's a really powerful channel. And I have nothing against marketplaces. We sold on marketplaces as well. And I think 30-35% of our sales came from marketplaces. It's exceptional channel. But D2C has its own advantages as well.
Absolutely. I think so. We have a business. They use InstaMojo, also Ginny's Planet. It's largely a D2C brand, and but chunks come in from B2B. So does it make sense to keep targeting both?
Absolutely. Dr. Vaidya's had B2B as well. We had contract manufacturing available, and we used to put it up on our website. And we got so many leads from our website as well. So there's no harm in doing both. And I think I was chatting with the D2C founder the other day, and he said, "Look, I sell water bottles among other products, and because of my D2C, I got an order of 300 water bottles from Ernst & Young." So yeah, D2C can help your B2B as well.
Of course, absolutely. A question that I also had personally, right, which is, how did you grow your organization? I mean, it wasn't just you and your wife who was running the business. After that, you built a team, right? So I would like to get a little insight on how you grew, Dr. Vaidya's team force. Like, how did you hire people? How did you get them in, and how did you go about it? Just a quick insight.
Yeah, so I think hiring based on culture is really important, right? So we had set philosophies at Dr. Vaidya's. Hard work is our strength, honesty our practice, humbleness our equity, happier to achieve, 100% and nothing less. Team effort is our power, and customer our reason for being. This was on every offer letter. It was outside my room. It was sort of on everyone's desk. It was really important for us, right? So I think building a strong culture was really important for us. And there were a lot of times we hired based on culture, not on skill set. Can the person fit into our organization? We can teach the skills then. Right. We from 4 to 150 people in 4 years. And I think that the culture really stood out when COVID hit, because we were open all through 2020 except 10 days, right? And we were fulfilling orders because we knew that customers needed the Ayurvedic medicine. And it was our responsibility to do this. So I think culture is really important as you're building an organization, especially in D2C where it's hard work.
Absolutely. And I want to know one thing as well. During pandemic, a lot of people, right? I've asked all the previous webinar speakers also, if you shifted your communication during the pandemic, it was a blow for all of us, for all businesses alike, and everyone took a slight shift in their communication to be more mindful, or to not
sensitive to what's going on in the world, right? When the second wave hit, for about 2 months, I didn't post anything on my Instagram, nothing at all. Zero. I just didn't want to.
Okay, that makes sense. So I think it's just about kind of reading the room, even if you're a brand that could actually profit from a pandemic. Makes sense. So we have one final question, which is, how much promotion in D2C do you think is right? Is there a right balance in it? Because some startups or companies end up bugging the consumers way too much, to an extent that they unfollow you altogether. So I think the primal fear of every D2C brand of losing your customers, right? So what do you have to say for that?
The best answer is talk to your customer, right?
Yeah.
Try something and talk to your customer and see if you're actually bugging the customer. Don't take judgment. I see a lot of D2C brands saying, I don't want to keep sending emails, customers get bugged, right? But if that email is giving you a 10 times ROI, then maybe your customer is actually not getting bugged. So don't take decisions for your customers without asking them, is my simple feedback on this one.
Absolutely. I think that's a great way to go about it also. It can get overwhelming. I know that when you decide to have a D2C brand, when customers are hounding you, it can get overwhelming. So I think keeping a steady flow of communication via emails, right? I think that's the ideal approach. Email marketing comes into play over here, right? Yeah. So that would be most helpful for them. So I think so. One last question before we wrap up the webinar, Arjun. I would like to know from you where Dr. Vaidya stands today. And what are you currently doing now? I know that because it's been very difficult for us also to get a hold of you. You have such a busy day as a D2C founder and angel investor. So a few closing notes on where Dr. Vaidya is standing today as a business, as a D2C channel.
So Dr. Vaidya is a leader in the e-commerce ecosystem for Ayurvedic products. We're sort of one of the top brands in the ecosystem. On March 8th, RP Sanjeev Goenka Group actually completely acquired Dr. Vaidya's.
Okay.
So I'm not actively involved in the business any longer. I don't run the business anymore.
Okay.
Since then, both Trisha and I have been sort of actively giving back to the ecosystem. So we are active angel investors. We invest in brands. We also mentor D2C brands as well. So if anyone is running a D2C brand, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to chat. I work as a venture partner for a revenue-based financing fund, which is again something interesting for D2C brands called GetVantage. And I teach a course on building a D2C brand in India. So I've done 3 cohorts already and probably roll out another cohort pretty soon. But yeah, that's what I've been up to since the exit. And I think it's been a pleasure to talk to you and to be a part of this session. And I think it's really nice to see you guys doing this for the community and for people who want to learn. So thank you for having me on the Mojo series. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely, Arjun. Thank you so much. So, there you have it. I think for anybody who's been watching the webinar actively, we will leave Arjun's LinkedIn profile over here in the comment section. And you can, for any mentoring tips or anything to do with D2C brands, you can reach out to him as well. We will share, I think, if there is an email ID through which people can reach out to you for any further questions, we can share that over here also. Arjun's a very busy angel investor and mentor, so I hope he'll have the time to reach out to you as well and help you all out. So thank you so much, Arjun, for doing this webinar with us today. We hope to do more webinars with you in the future.
Pleasure. Take care. Stay safe, guys.
All right. Bye, guys. Bye, everybody.